Hey there.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Um, you're almost halfway through. Are you excited?
I am. I'm getting a little anxious and also just like a little nervous because I feel like it's coming up so quickly and I want to make sure that I'm ready for everything, but I'm really excited.
Good, good. Well, you came back from vacation and jumped right back in, which is good, so that you didn't get too far behind. Okay, I watched your video last night and read your reflection. Let's just start with how you feel about the lesson.
Hey, Rory, we're having a meeting right there. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Dinner's over there. Um, um, so how I felt about the lesson? I
Mm-hmm.
felt I felt not great about it. The lesson itself, I was excited about, and I thought it had some good content. But again, I didn't adjust as much as I should have given like the circumstances and things that happened. That being said, when it happened, I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible, like the other time. And then I watched it and I realized it wasn't as bad, but there were quite a few adjustments that I could have made that would have made it a lot better. And when we were doing the class, with theory where we had looked at quite a few good ideas that could have worked for formative assessments. I did think that some of the ones I used worked and they were effective at telling me what the kids knew, but I could have diversified it and used some other formative assessments. I had actually made a note about some that I like, but they didn't get worked with that lesson.
Yeah, and I think that is a theme. As we go through these, I think that timely accommodation thing is
Yep.
becoming more and more of a theme. And so it's really your ability to anticipate and know your learners, because as you think about your learners and you think about how they might respond,
Mm-hmm.
then you can get some strategies readily available in the forefront of your mind, so that when that happens, um, it's more seamless. And so that was kind of how I was feeling too. Like, I think you're really good at giving them feedback. I'm just not sure there's a real adjustment of what is happening. And that is the whole point of formative assessment, is that it instructs or it guides what you're doing in your instruction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's run through what I have. Okay, let's see. Accommodations in assessments. Now, understand that when I watch your video, I watch it before I look at your reflection.
Okay.
So sometimes I see things and then I look at the reflection. I'm like, maybe that wasn't intended, but this is what I saw. Okay, so I saw a teacher assistant helping a little bit, and I
Mm-hmm.
wondered if that wasn't some kind of an adjustment or modification in the assessment. When they were doing their seat work, I don't know that you necessarily saw that as being an assessment, right? Maybe a formative assessment, but it was more just practice. Is that right?
With my co-teacher helping.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, I didn't really think of it as a sense of formative assessment, although I do notice she does she helps a lot. And she tends to go towards the kids that really are struggling the most. And it's usually the same kids that she'll help over and over again with the same kinds of things. So, for example, Jamie is not a very good reader. She's actually starting to get a bit better, but she tends to go by Jamie and help her with the reading or spell it out for her so she can write more quickly, or Yule as well. So it's often the same students a lot,
Which is
or groups that
okay.
are struggling.
Which is okay, because I mean, that is the kind of accommodation you have to make when you're doing assessments. So utilize her. I mean, and pinpoint those kids. If she's not working with certain ones that need that kind of support, I would pinpoint those kids, and you do the same. I did I did think that reading the sentences aloud after you give them their paper was a great way to scaffold for those kids that need accommodation. Um, the pair work at the beginning that you had them do, again, really important, so that they feel comfortable and then they can go on and do their own individual work. But again, I don't know that you looked at that as an assessment. So um, those kinds of strategies can transfer to your assessment if,
Mhm.
you know,
I was trying to pay attention to the kids that were listening to my instructions and struggled more, and the ones that didn't struggle as much. And I did notice as I was giving instructions, some of the kids kind of didn't listen because they didn't need it as much because they could understand and go ahead. And I did pay attention to the ones that had to listen much more carefully and hear the clues. So I was trying to like take notice of that around that class.
good, good. The use of assessment, I think that this is the whole lesson you were formatively assessing. I mean, it was fabulous. And so, you know, this is where probably you won't get the highest score only
Mhm.
because I feel like it's that accommodation piece, like being
Absolutely,
able
yeah.
to make those timely accommodations. So just keep working on that. Feedback, you are really good at giving feedback. I mean, you immediately respond. You give a lot of positive feedback. You know, you said bingo, high five, and then you went back and you said, is it in the middle? Where do we put our capital letters? So you're constantly like redirecting your feet, you know, based on what they're telling you. And so that was really good. I felt like that was a strength for you. Alignment of assessments with objectives. You commented this on this in your reflection that your summative will be testing for the capitalization, and then the lesson itself was built around the objective of that. So that was right on target. Formative and summative assessments. I feel like your lesson, I feel like this was outstanding. If there are two areas where I feel like you
Yeah.
did outstanding, it was this and it was the feedback, because I think that this is pretty natural for you. I think you're constantly formatively assessing your kids based on that kind of bouncing back and forth that you do with them. And so that's really, really good and really a strength. So take it to the next level and just use what they're showing you, you know, to then modify what you're doing. So we've talked a lot about, you know, once you've given them that independent work, that's a great time to pull a small group of kids who maybe is struggling and work with them, or, you know, seat them together so that you can be at their table during that time. Um, if your seating arrangement is fluid, you can work that into a way that doesn't make it so obvious, because I know for your kids it's wanting to all look the same, right?
Absolutely. And I agree. Actually, I was, Rory, I think it's a combination of like, he just will do it anyway. And I don't know if he cares what parents say as much. Also, his parents are like a little bit, more, I think they trust him a little bit more. And because my kids, his kids are doing the 1 year in kindergarten, and my kids are planning on doing 3, and their parents are just, they have such high expectations. And there's a lot of complaints about student relationships, and so we've kind of been forced to like sit them together to build strong relationships with people that they're having arguments with at the time. But he seats them together based on like ability and like strengths, and I really want to do that because I think that would be so helpful. It's just we've had a little bit of trouble with that lately.
I'm hearing this more and more as a theme of many of you who are working in international schools, just the high demand of the parents, high
Yeah.
demand, low involvement. And so they just make their demands and they expect them to be met. And so if there's a way to do it that makes it look advantageous to their success, you know, and just be ready. I would just say when you do something like that, be ready to formulate a response that is helping them to see how it's going to benefit their child.
Okay.
Make it always about the how will your child succeed better in this situation. And so you don't have to give them all the information as to why you're moving seats, but that would be my recommendation at least. But I think you continue to see what's missing in your instruction, and now you've just got to get a plan together, you know, to try and tackle it, so to speak.
For sure, but that makes me feel a lot better because I was quite worried about this lesson. But I've really been trying my best to kind of like see where they are so I can help them. And I notice the more that I really try, I think they're making progress. And so it's good to know that it's going in the right direction.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's just that whole, and I think the other piece you have to be really careful of, and I've said this before, is the amount of time that you lecture
Mm-hmm.
or present. It's not really a lecture, but the amount of time that it's teacher led. I feel like that's the other piece that you probably need to spend some time really working on. Because even though they're obedient and they seem to be, for the most part, listening, which I'm really impressed by, it's probably not the best, A, developmentally appropriate practice, and B, it's not as engaging as other practices. So keep leaning into those two areas. I feel like that's probably where you're going to need to like push a little bit, push yourself, and that's where you're going to see growth once you do that.
I agree. I thought about that too. I don't like lecturing so much, and I feel like they're very bright and they catch on quickly. So I think if I create a more reliable variety of kind of like activities for them to do, but then it's like we can cycle through them and use them for different things and they can understand how to do it. So that way there's not as much like introduction time. I think that can help them. That way they can jump right in. And I
Yeah.
actually did think about what you might say about like how difficult the paper was, because I did know like it was a little too hard for them, or like time adjustment. So I did a similar lesson again today to follow up on it, and I simplified it and it worked much better. So trying to figure out how to, it's slow going, but trying to figure
Well,
it
and I think, to me, they don't seem like American kindergartners. So that's, I'm always like caught off guard when you say that because I don't feel like I'm watching a kindergarten class. So I think from that standpoint, you probably live in that a little bit of like having to go back and go, oh, wait, this is not a typical 5 and 6 year old activity.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things you can do is go online and search for developmental stages, and look through like what a 5 and 6 year old should be able to do, because I've talked to you again about like their cutting ability. Like that blows
Mm-hmm.
my mind that they can actually cut like they do. That's,
Yeah.
that's advanced in a lot of ways. And so the culture is going to play into that. But I would just get some benchmarks in your mind as to kind of, and you can always push a little bit, but you quickly saw that this is really hard for them, and you made the comment in your reflection about kind of having it more of a paragraph form rather than just simple sentences and how you
Mm-hmm.
should have. So I mean, that's a typical thing to have happen in terms of teaching, is where you assign something and you go, oh, I overestimated. It's
Yeah.
just that your response was good because then the next day you adjusted. And so that's what it's all about. So yeah, just keep after it. And then I think the next standard is standard 7, and it's kind of a culmination of everything you've been working on. And so that will be an opportunity for you to again think about, okay, different student-centered strategies, and then how do I differentiate, because that's going to be a big one.
Yeah, differentiation has always been a part that I've had like a difficult time with, but I can appreciate a lot. So I'm gonna give it a go. It's actually funny because one of my classes now requires a huge amount of differentiation because it's 5-year-olds, first year 6-year-olds, second year 6-year-olds, and some of them have been in half the year and some of them came in like a week ago. And so they're all over the place, but figuring out, learning more how to differentiate is helping with stuff like that. So I'm working on it because I can't appreciate the practice of differentiation.
Well, think about too how you utilize learning centers,
Mm-hmm.
and you could even make them color coded so that like this group, you have to choose a learning center that's green or red,
Mm-hmm.
or your group has to choose a learning center that's blue. I mean, so that there's some choice, but there's also some tiering of what you're asking them to do.
Okay.
I mean, that will take some time up front setting up the learning centers, but you can really maximize some instructional time if you do that.
Okay. Good idea. Good to know, because I was thinking about like, okay, if I give them freedom to be like, hey, here's 3 ways that you can learn, pick the way that you would most enjoy doing this activity or something like that, they're all going to immediately go to, like, it's not the activity that's best for them. They're going to go to the one that either looks the most exciting or the one where their friend is at.
Yep.
And so I like that, though, like limiting the options but still providing options.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you'll realize that when they have choice, over and over time, they'll select things that are more geared to who they are as learners. So, okay.
Awesome. Well, I'll keep that in mind. Thank you
All
for
right.
the advice.
Sure. Okay. Have a good day.
Yeah, have a good week. See you next week.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.